Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me, Dr. Abdullah. Please tell us your full name, a little bit about where you were born and grew up, and your family of origin.
Well, my name is Aslam Abdullah, and I am the director of the Islamic Society of Nevada. I was born in India, and I migrated to this country some 25 years ago. I've been in Chicago, I've been in California, and this is the place where I am now at the moment. I have a family of 4 children. They were all born here or in England. I did my graduation from England and my PhD also from England, and then I moved here, and I basically have been involved in running 2 leading newspapers. One is called the Muslim Observer, which is a weekly newspaper, and the one was the Minaret, which lasted for 15 years, but due to financial constraints it closed down. And these 2 were the major spokespersons or spokesvoices of the Muslim community in the last 20 years.
In the United States?
In the United States.
What did your father do?
My father was a social worker, and he was also involved in community work, and he was also involved in journalism. He was also the editor of a newspaper that published from India.
So you come from an educated family?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What are your degrees in?
I have my degrees in Arabic and Islamic Studies, Sociology, and Communications.
And the PhD is in
Communications.
Communications. Why did you select Communications?
Because that was the field which in the 80s I thought would be the one that would be the future.
Well, the world is very much about communications these days.
Indeed.
Evidence what we're doing here today.
Indeed. And it was more in relation to the mass communication. And so I basically went into that area just to understand the skills, to understand the dynamics and all other things.
Are you working on any other graduate studies now?
Well, I would be teaching a course on Islam, Christianity, and Judaism at the Southern Nevada Community College next fall. And I'm also teaching a few classes at University of Nevada from time to time on Islam. So most of the time I'm using these skills to teach something that I've been involved in, that is Islamic work.
Are you an ordained clergy person the way a rabbi or a priest or a minister is?
In fact, in Islam there is no such thing called ordained minister. There are people who are called scholars, and their scholarship is recognized on the basis of what they say and what they write. It is recognized by the people and by their peers. So there is no such thing called that you have a school of imam, for instance.
No ordination.
Yes, no ordination.
No doctor of theology.
Indeed. Yes. I mean, we may have the people who would complete a course in Islamic studies, who would have Islamic education, and who could claim that they know the basics, but since the faith is much more based on a no hierarchy system, a no clergy system, hence there is no ordained ministers or ordained imam.
So do the members of your congregation address you as imam?
Yes, they do. They do.
Okay. Is there, in the Old Testament, there's several places where it talks about leaving the corners of your fields for the poor, giving 10%, those kinds of things. Are there Quranic injunctions along that line?
In fact, the Quran is full with these kind of injunctions. Quran specifically asks people to basically donate as much as they can.
There's no specific number.
Quran in fact says that give whatever is left beyond your needs.
So if you're wealthy, you might only keep 30 or 40% of what you make
Exactly.
and donate the rest.
Exactly. That is what is the recommended thing. Usually, every year it is obligatory upon us to pay certain percentage of our savings to the poor and the needy. This could be done in an institutional manner, it could be done in an individual manner. And some people give 2.5%, some people give more than that, but this is something that has been there, and the entire Muslim community basically takes the 2.5% out of its resources for that.
If you take 2.5% of all the money that a billion plus people, however many Muslims there are, that's a chunk of change.
It is indeed. It's a lot of money. And that's why many of the projects in the Muslim world, humanitarian and philanthropic, are basically run on the basis of this money that the community raises every year. Besides that, we also have a festival of sacrifice, which is commemorated to remember Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael. And we sacrifice a lamb or a goat on that day. Some people do that, or some people donate that amount of money to the needy and to the poor. So that is another.
So let me, in the United States, when someone wants to sacrifice a lamb, do they really go out and slaughter it themselves, or they just buy a corpse ready-made from some slaughterer?
No, they would go and slaughter it themselves if they can afford. If
How much does the lamb or goat cost?
$150 to $200.
So a normal family could.
Yes. And if they do not have the facility to slaughter, they would basically give the money back in their own country or any other place in the world where they would think the needy people are, and somebody would slaughter on their behalf and distribute the meat. Some people would even give the money and would say, well, the meat is easily available, so now use this money for any other purposes.
And they just go buy a lamb roast or something like that.
Something like that. Yes.
So like this guy in Utah who was convicted of marrying and having sex with 12-year-olds.
We will not take that.
You would not defend someone like that.
It goes against the constitution of this country, basically. So basically, what we define the religious freedom is a religious freedom that has been guaranteed by the constitution. But that does not mean that the people would overstep the laws of this country in order to basically.
So the law that prohibits polygamy is one that you, since you live in this country, you must agree and abide by.
Yes, we must abide by.
Even though your religion doesn't prohibit polygamy.
There is a big controversy within the Muslim community about it. The polygamy is not approved by religion. Period. Monogamy is the rule of the marriage within the Islamic community.
In so many Islamic countries, it seems quite common.
Yes. You see, what is very interesting is that if you look at the statistics that has been collected by the United Nations, you would find more Christians marrying second or third time than many Muslims.
Okay, but they get a divorce in between.
Yes, whatever. But what basically the issue is that the religion does not command people to marry more than one.
Right.
In situations...
Does it command him to marry once?
Only once.
It does say you must marry.
It does say that you should marry.
Okay.
But there are conditions in which a person is unable to marry, and those conditions are recognized by religion.
Okay.
But what basically it says is that if you find a situation where due to the social conditions, women become dependent on the society, and their dependence might be exploited by those people who want to exploit them, at that particular moment you are allowed to give them protection by marrying them. That is only for the purpose of protecting the dignity and the rights of women.
Not to get a to get a hot 16-year-old wife when you're 40.
No. It is not in that. It is not. This is, in fact, on the contrary, the Quran says that you should look after the orphans, you should look after those who are widows, because there was a time within the Muslim society in the early times, at the time of the Prophet, when due to a war, a large number of Muslim men lost their lives. Of course, leaving
when they
behind-
conquered half the world during
Yes.
that time, many
Yes.
men lost their
Yes.
lives.
So, women, orphans, and widows, of course, were there. And in a tribal society, if you do not belong to a particular tribe and a particular man, then you are at the mercy of all the people who are there. It is in that kind of situation that these people were given the permission that, well, if you can do justice with these people, then you can provide them protection by marrying them, because when you marry them, you would basically treat them as equal. And once you treat them as equal, then they. But it was again in relation to the widows, in relation to the orphans, and all those things. It's not a general rule that you have to marry and you must marry and all those kind of things. Now, some people might use it as a license to marry a 16-year-old, right? But they would be going against the spirit of the faith. They would be going against the principles of the faith. They would be basically using religion for that purposes, as people use all the time. They invoke the name of God to do whatever they want to do. I mean, Jim
History
Jones,
is full of it.
yeah,
History
Jim
is-
Jones, that what happened, what he did.
It's more full of it than it's empty of it.
Exactly. And in fact, if you look in reality, and if you honestly look at the history, you would find religion one of the greatest curse of humanity. Religion has been responsible for more deaths in our human history than any other institution in the world. Religion has been the single most exploitative instrument in the hands of those who are powerful. In the name of God, they can make people do whatever they want to do. They would let them kill the Jews, they would let them kill the Christian, they would let them kill the Muslim, they would let them kill anyone in the name of God. They would destroy the honor and dignity of people at the will of God. And this is all done in the name of God. Nobody has seen, and nobody has basically, has
Demonstrated
had that kind
beyond
of faith.
to where you could prove it in a court of law.
Exactly. It's just a matter of faith, basically. It's a matter of. So, what unfortunately has happened is that for over the centuries, this is the role that religion and religious leadership has played.
How can we shift that? How can we change that?
Only
Let me give you an example. I interviewed a woman yesterday who's a Christian woman. And she believed, I won't say the name of her society or whatever, but I looked at their website and one of their things was being anti-homosexual. That they should pray for homosexuals to be cured. That's what they said. That's not the way I see homosexuality. So I asked her about it, and she was adamant that homosexual behavior is sexual misbehavior, the same as adultery or sex with animals or whatever.
okay.
So these people are very adamant, and they are strict, on these issues. They think that all our lives should be governed entirely by their holy books. How can we shift that so that people aren't trying to put their stuff on everybody else to the point of murdering them?
Okay, first of all, I think what we need to understand is that when we join a particular group, a particular party, a particular faith, we follow the rules of that faith.
Okay.
But that does not give us the permission and the right to impose our rules upon others.
That's the rule. That's the law in the United States. But that's not the way everybody's acting these
Exactly.
days. They're trying to put their stuff on everybody, just
Exactly.
like
And that basically is the dirty game that the religious communities have played throughout the history. Why have so many Jews been killed in the history?
well,
Because they were called the killer of Messiah.
I,
What has happened to Jews is somehow unique in the history. During inquisitions, during crusades, during pogroms,
my grandmother lived through 2 pogroms.
during the early stages of Christianity. One of the biggest charges against them is that they are the Christ killers.